President Trump getting some R&R this weekend in Florida following a busy week in Washington. I want to bring in now syndicated talk radio host John Fredericks and Joe Madison, a host on Sirius XM. Good to have both of you on. Joe, I'm going to start with you this time. Let's talk about the highs and the lows of the week. The president was widely praised for his speech to Congress on Tuesday night. That seemed like, that was 3 or 4 nights ago. That seemed like 4 years ago now. What do you think?
Well, he was widely praised because he behaved himself. What I did and told my audience to do is to not look at the optics, which were great. There's no ifs, ands, buts about it. But then to print out the speech. And once I printed out the speech and I read the text of it, like any good political science student would, the reality is it was the same old Donald Trump. So for his supporters like John and others, it was a great day. But this administration is amazing. It's like a yo-yo. It's up, it's down. He should have been able to ride this week out and been on a high. Everybody expected a bump, and then bam, here we go with Jeff Sessions, and it's now a low.
John?
Well, this is the jobs president, and his speech in the week is about jobs, jobs, jobs. This is like the 1917 American Workers' Revolution in reverse. He has a speech. He lays out his jobs agenda. He starts by saying, look, I'm going to do an increase in defense spending of 10%, $54 billion. I'm going to make America great again by rebuilding the military with the American workers. Then he goes to the Newport News shipyard in Virginia. I was there. There were 2,500 workers. They're going to get better hours. They're going to get better jobs. He's for that. Then he lays out an immigration reform plan and says, for legal immigration, I'm going to look to restrict legal immigration coming into the United States so I can increase job opportunities for Americans and I can increase wages. This is, and then he says, I'm going to have a $1 trillion infrastructure plan to rebuild the United States and put Americans back to work. This is the jobs president. I think that was his message.
Okay,
and so if you
John,
look at the speech, there it is.
Okay, so that's a speech, and those are that's what proposals, what he would like to do. That has not come to fruition yet. But what did happen, and what's taken over the news cycle, not only on this network, but every other network, and on the front pages, are these Russian connections. As Joe Madison said, they thought it was in the rearview mirror, and then all of a sudden you have Jeff Sessions. Well, why can't they seem to get this behind them?
And as you properly noted, John laid out what were really headlines. The devil is in the details. And the question is, where do you get $1 trillion from? And those details weren't there. Now, to be honest, you don't expect details in that kind of speech. And I've been around long enough to understand that. But notice what John just did. He didn't even touch the Jeff Sessions thing. And this is what they do. They sit there and talk about all the good things, but then everybody and their grandmother knows they screwed up big time at the end of the week. And quite candidly, I think Republicans right now are very nervous because they have to decide, do we have an independent counsel? Does Jeff Sessions stay? Does he recuse himself? Let me tell you, it's very serious,
John,
when a attorney general has to stand up there and has selective memory. He can remember Christians going into Moscow, but he can't even remember what an ambassador said in reference to a very serious issue.
How do you respond to that?
Well, Joe and Don, Jeff Sessions, Attorney General Jeff Sessions, gave a very narrow answer to a very narrow question that technically, if you analyze it through lawyers' eyes, it was a technically correct question. But he was not forthcoming with the entire truth. And I think he said that by saying, look, I need to go back and correct the record, because 3 words of a statement were missing. Those 3 words were, as a surrogate. I didn't meet with anybody. He did meet with them in his job as a U.S. Senator on the Armed Services Committee, and he should have been more effusive in the confirmation hearing. I think he did the right thing by recusing himself without a doubt.
Yeah.
You're choking, John.
Look, this thing is not, he's got to be more effusive. This thing is not going to go away, though, until you get all the
realize
facts
that one
out.
of those meetings when he went to the convention that he used campaign funds to go to the convention. He was acting as an advisor and a surrogate on behalf of the Trump campaign at the convention when he met with the Russian ambassador. Yet that meeting was a meeting as a senator and not as a Trump advisor.
Don,
And also keep in mind there is they asked an oral question and there was a written question, and he responded similarly in both with his answers.
Well, Don, in all fairness, the meeting at the RNC, as we understand that he had made a speech and they came up to him, that was not a scheduled meeting. But look, there's no doubt that the scheduled meeting is in his office, although he had his aides there. That should have been within his response to Al Franken in that meeting. And look, he lawyered up. It was a very narrow answer to a very narrow question.
So if he answered the question truthfully, why recuse himself?
Well, I think he's recusing himself now because he was part of the campaign. He was a surrogate in the campaign. So if you were investigating the campaign and you were part of it, I don't think that makes any sense. I think that Jeff Sessions should have recused himself even if this hadn't come up. It didn't make any sense to me. Look, the only way you're going to get to the bottom of this is if you have an independent commission, an independent prosecutor looking at this just like they did in the 9/11 commission. I had conservative congressman from North Carolina, Walter Jones, on my show today who said that's what they ought to do. That's the only way you're going to get to the bottom of it.
Do you agree with that, Joe?
They did
An
anything
independent?
wrong.
Oh, man.
So
mark this as
you
a
do the
moment.
Investigation. There's nothing there.
Look,
It's over.
Mark this as a moment of agreement. He is absolutely 100% correct. And basically, it's good for the country. This has to go beyond partisan politics. This is, this is interesting. And I heard somebody say it's like the second Cold War. I have never seen an incoming administration spend so much time with so many freaking Russians in my political life. And man, something is going on.
Okay.
That we need to get to the bottom of this and quit thinking that Russia is an ally. It is not an ally. They are an adversarial government, and we need to understand that. And this administration needs to come clean.
The Trump campaign and the president himself trying to get back on message. They released a new video. We'll play it and get your reaction right after the break.
This is CNN, the most trusted name in news.
And we're back now. John Fredericks is here, Joe Madison as well. So President Trump tweeted a video today with the words, "Make America Great Again." Let's watch part of this video.
A new chapter of American greatness is now beginning. A new national pride is sweeping across our nation, and a new surge of optimism is placing impossible dreams firmly within our grasp. What we are witnessing today is the renewal of the American spirit.
So now president, but private citizen Trump has always been about branding. What did you make of that video, John?
It's like I said at the beginning of the show, it's about renewing a revival of jobs in America. And as I've said over and over and over, jobs, a growing economy, economic prosperity makes everybody happy, and it is the great equalizer. That's really what he needs to be focusing on, is bringing jobs back to the United States, getting people back to work, keeping them working, raising wages, creating opportunity, expanding the economy for everybody. If he can do that, he's going to get reelected in 2020 by a bigger margin than you can imagine. And that's what he's trying to work on.
Joe?
This other stuff is a distraction. That's why I'm for an independent prosecutor in order to get this truth out. They didn't do anything. Let's put the whole thing to bed, stop the constant drip, and get back to getting people back to work.
Go ahead,
well,
Joe.
Real quick, look, you can't disagree with the goal of what John just laid out. I mean, who would do that? Of course, that's what everybody wants. But it's a question of how do you get there. You don't get there when you don't invest in public education. You don't get there when student loans are more than credit card loans. You don't get there when you allow Flint, Michigan to die because they haven't dealt with the lead in water, and yet you cry about the importance of urban cities. You don't get there by demeaning people who happen to look different than you. If you're going to get there, you get there with everybody, and you have to deal with the issues that all of us are dealing with. So I don't disagree with what John says, but we've got to quit this demonizing of people because they look different. Because when I hear again that term, make America great again, then I've got to say, where do you go back to? Because the reality is this. The proof is going to be in that budget. You don't get there when 20 million people need health insurance and you take it away from them, because good health means that you can go to work with these jobs that he's supposed to create.
I got to let you respond to that, John, because your reaction is priceless.
Joe, I love you, man. I really do. But nobody's taken away 20 million people off insurance. President Trump has said over and over and over, he's not, he has said that he's not going to go with a repeal of Obamacare until there is a legitimate replacement. And he said whatever the number is, 15 million people that have insurance today that didn't have insurance before Obamacare are not going to be simply tossed off the rolls. They're going to have to find a way in order to keep those people covered in some period of time. So he hasn't ever said that. So we don't even have a plan. There isn't even a consensus plan that has come out. And until the president gets behind the plan and says, this is the plan to replace Obamacare that I'm in favor of, it's all conjecture. And he said over and over and over, he is not in favor of kicking off 15 million people that have insurance today that didn't have it in the past.
Well, he better tell his colleagues in the Republican Congress that, because they obviously haven't gotten the memo.
Okay.
Joe, we have President Trump because of the ineffectiveness of the Republican Congress. If they hadn't been so effective, he wouldn't even have been the nominee. He doesn't care what they say. It's going to be his plan.
Well, excuse me, he better care. They're going to be looking at his budget real soon. Are you kidding me? Come on, John. This is America. We have
You know what? He is going to drive. President Trump is going to drive this plan, Joe. It's not going to be Paul Ryan. It's not going to be McConnell.
John.
President Trump is going to drive the plan, and then we'll see what happens. But right now, there isn't even a consensus plan, so we have to wait and see.
All right, I want to put this up because this is also something that's drawing some controversy. Let's put up this photo. It's been circulating among right-wing outlets. When Trump tweeted this photo, it was already on the homepage of the Drudge Report. The president has also praised InfoWars, a French website operated by far-right wing conspiracy theorist Alex Jones, who claims that 9/11 was an inside job and that the Sandy Hook massacre was a hoax. What do you make of the president getting his information from these sites? First, Joe Madison.
Oh, I wouldn't even dignify it with an answer. Alex Jones is a fraud. Shouldn't even be in the business, to be quite candid. And the reality is the only controversy in that video is the fact that they were eating Krispy Kreme donuts. That's about it.
John. John.
Joe, I think you're being way too kind to Alex Jones. That stuff is so ridiculous. 50% of the stuff on that show they just make up. I don't have time for that. I want real news, real information. That is absolute nonsense. Anybody that's going to those sites.
But my question was, are you concerned that the president is using that as a source?
That's the point. Yeah.
I think anything that has to do with any of these ridiculous fake news sites that make up stuff in order to gain advertisers so that they can sell something, I mean, that is ridiculous and a complete waste of time.
Well, tell the president that.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Well, if I see him, I will. But You know what? I mean,
You could tell him now, maybe. He could be watching. You never know.
I got to tell you.
He listens to your radio show, I'm sure you can tell.
He's listening to me right now. President Trump, if you're listening to me, half the stuff on Alex Jones is just made up. This stuff is ridiculous. I mean, who's got time for that? I have to decipher what's true, what isn't true. I don't know about you. I don't have the time for that.
All right, maybe somebody else does. John?
Boy, oh boy, oh
you know
boy. You
what?
guys are always, it's always interesting when you're here.
Joe.
I got to go, John. Joe, thank you. John, thank you.
See ya.
Have a good weekend.
We'll be right back.
All right.